Hey, Dave here from Powerwolf with another Drifter Dev Diary. It's been 3 months since I did the last one, but yeah, had a bit of a break over the holidays, and I've also been really busy working on the game. Got sort of 3 artists working on it now, so a lot of writing little art briefs and getting art in the game and giving feedback and all that stuff. So it's kind of feels like a constant kind of stream of stuff happening at the moment. But yeah, I'll try and get back into doing these semi-regularly. Today I want to talk about inspiration and sort of what influences I guess I have for the Drifter, and just like my kind of thoughts and philosophy on like inspiration and what taking influences and for any creative stuff really, I guess. I'll show you some Drifter stuff first though. Here we are. Matt's done sort of 5 backgrounds since the last one, I think. About 5. And I've been kind of getting some of them in, and we actually got a whole chapter done. So there's this one with this abandoned car by the side of the road, which I think I showed a bit of earlier, but now it's sort of all in game. He did we've got all the backgrounds and all the animations for chapter 5, which is this one in here. The only thing left, I think, is Barney doing a sort of polish pass on some of the backgrounds and stuff. But like all the kind of, I put these in, got them all lit and stuff, a lot of character lighting and stuff. Looks so cool. And that was quite an animation heavy one, so Alex did heaps of animation for it and stuff. Took them quite a, there's just, it ended up being a lot more animation than I'd sort of thought, just all the little bits and bobs. There's a big section in this kind of underground lab thing. Yeah, so now we're sort of been steaming ahead on the next chapter 7. This is from earlier in the game. Barney's just done a pass on this room. This room sort of scrolls, and these sort of this framing device or the window frame thing sort of scrolls independently and kind of goes all the way up. So this is the next one for me to get in, and I'll continue streaming after this little video and maybe start getting this into the game as well. But yeah, we've sort of started going on into chapter 6. Got the background arts ready for that, and Barney's doing a pass on one of the final backgrounds, and then we can start doing all the rest of the animations for that and start getting it in game. So yeah, steaming ahead. And onto the topic, today's topic of inspiration. What's inspired the game? And I guess my sort of the short answer is really just everything. And I think that's a nice thing about sort of creative work is you can take inspiration from everything you watch or see or read, and also just experiences you have, people you meet. But I'll give you, I guess, some insight into some of the Drifter ones specifically. So in terms of the background art, I guess films where they're sort of set, they're nicely color graded maybe and set in the night, and you've got kind of the sodium lamps lighting up a city, and so that was so the kind of yellowy lamps and the blue darkness of a city. That was kind of some of the inspiration for the sort of background and art style early on in terms of colors and things. And yeah, that was more coming from films and stuff like that than from other video games and things. So there was there's a couple of pixel arty things in here which I looked at, that I found on Twitter, and I can't remember who made this one. Might have been Geography of Robots, I don't know. But yeah, you can sort of see kind of the bit of that influence maybe in the high contrast art for the game. In terms of the other part of that was I guess from the video game influence was the older sort of low palette games, like EGA games even, that had very few colors to work from, but they were really high contrast colors. And so getting that, and very crisp as well. So not the ones where you had the sort of painted sort of aliased background. It was all anti-alias background. It was all very hard edges and things like that. And so that's why you've got kind of very low color palettes here, where there's only two sort of dark colors, and then just like suggesting things with shape and shadow. Yeah, I guess that's a sort of summary of the art stuff. In terms of just general influence, though, I think like story influence, a lot of it was like novels, so thriller novels specifically. Michael Crichton was a big influence in terms of the sort of I guess the genre, like this sort of techno thriller vibe, trying to get like a feeling quite like a modern thing, but then having a bit of science fiction-y elements to it. This is a really cheesy book, Ice Station by Matthew Riley, but it's interesting because it's like super fast paced. The action's just like every scene, some new crazy things happening, like a killer whale's like biting someone's leg, and then they're just about to escape it, but then they drop a grenade and it's like the pin's fallen out and they're going to explode, and then a submarine crashes through the ceiling or something, and it's like it just keeps going on like that. I like that in the Michael Crichton stuff as well, where you just get this escalation of the odds, like, you know, odds being against the character. Like, you know, you see it in Jurassic Park and stuff. You see it a bit where, like, you know, it starts and it's like all nice, and then things get worse and worse as it goes on. You know, Silence of the Lambs is a really amazing book and amazing film as well. That was just really good. You know, reading a lot of sort of fiction like this got me just excited about the game, and sort of I've probably like helped me with a bit, like the language and the writing and stuff. Robin Cook's another one. He does all these medical thrillers that are, I guess, really, you know, it's all about like they're always like a doctor character, and then there's always some like dark sort of thrillery thing going on in the hospital or whatever where they work. I love the art on this one. Scary doctor, and also his face on the back. But they're really kind of cheesy and very formulaic, but fun to read. And you know, Stephen King like is always good to read as well. Like, I'm not sure, like there's a bit of that sort of mystical influence on the game as well. But I don't think I can quite capture Stephen King's ability to just make things have this sort of off-kilter kind of feel that, you know, something's weird and some mystical things kind of going on. But there's a bit of that sort of influence in the game. And I mean, in terms of film, like John Carpenter's stuff and Cronenberg, I was basically been watching like every 70s thriller I can, because I think that vibe is just really awesome. And also a bunch of Ozploitation. So there's a period around 70s, 80s where in Australia, I think there was a lot of grants for films, and so there was a lot of really B-grade films being made. And you had things like Mad Max, which everyone knows, but then there was just like heaps of other ones which are really, really awesome and I really like. But they're really, yeah, very B-grade, but worth checking out if you're sort of interested in film. Like, it's pretty hard to watch a good movie and not be like, oh, I'd love to make this into a game or do something with this. Like recently last year I was watching Columbo again. Well, I actually hadn't seen most of it before, except little bits, but that got me excited about the sort of detective-y and mystery parts of it as well, and just that character's so fun. But also just especially the early episodes, the style which is in there. It's the kind of thing you see nowadays with Tarantino, and maybe Rian Johnson or something. But yeah, that stuff's great. Yeah, I mean, and in general, yeah, just drawing inspiration from wherever you can. Like, there's no single place that you should be going to, and I think one of the things you definitely shouldn't be doing is it's just looking at the, you know, games from the last 5 years, the games that, like, oh, I liked this game that I played last year, I want to make that. You know, I think that's the mistake with I guess probably with any art or whatever, but with video games especially, like, you don't want to just look at what the most recent thing is. I had a period that I kind of cherish when I was at uni. My family I didn't have much money. I didn't really have a proper job. I was just fixing computers every now and then. But so I was at uni, living at home still. Didn't really need much money, but I didn't have money to buy games, so I wasn't buying any new games. But I was looking at a lot of abandonware, so games that were 10 years older at that time, and that was 2000 or something. And Home of the Underdogs was this website. I spent a lot of time on sort of sifting through weird old PC games from when I was before I was born, or that kind of thing, around till the the mid 80s or whatever, when I was too young to play them. But I feel like that was a really good influence and basis for, like, as a game developer, drawing influence from, because there was none of this sort of the modern thing, AAA thing of like games. They kind of know what mistakes not to make. So the games back then were making all the mistakes, and you could kind of learn from that a lot more than you can learn from games where that's been all sort of polished off. So I think whenever you look at older games, I think it's a good thing to do. And I think even the like console games, like Nintendo games and things, don't look at the good ones, look at the bad ones as well, because the bad ones are the ones which didn't get copied and copied and copied. And so they're the ones where you'll be able to find something that's interesting to kind of take in your own direction, that hasn't been done to death. And I guess another example is when I was working on this game, Alluvium.
Inspecting a dam or a bridge, you're looking for signs of failure years in advance. The bridge we were headed to, remote part of West Papua, that could wait 10 years for another experienced engineer. But I don't foresee everything.
Yeah, so the idea for the character in this game was just from this conversation I had with a kind of acquaintance, a friend of a friend. He was sort of telling me about what he did, and he's an engineer, like a structural, a structural engineer. But basically his job was he'd travel overseas and inspect like a bridge or something, because all these big structures have a set lifespan. Like, they're only built to last a certain amount of time. So when they're kind of nearing that lifespan, they get engineers in to come look at them and make sure they're not about to fall apart and stuff. And I just thought that was a really interesting kind of job, and so that was a sort of inspiration for this character who's like, okay, I wanted to do a desert island thing, but maybe this character he's been flying to a remote area to look at a dam or a bridge or whatever, and plane crashes, and he's an engineer, so how is he going to approach the situation? So then that influences like the game. In the game, the character had built this dam. I don't know if you can see it in this shot. No. And there's a bit about like the dam and the thing, and then there's also like influence of like gameplay in there, where because he's used to like inspecting things and seeing if they're about to fail, he sort of looks, and he's got this sort of perception of the future a bit, where he can like look at a situation and decide whether it's going to end in bad things or not. So yeah, it was just like that was just a weird influence that I had for that game. But there's a lot of things like that where, like, yeah, just take little inspiration from random little things that happen. So always be on the lookout. And like, you want to read lots and play lots of games and watch lots of movies and experience lots of things. Basically, one of the things I've heard people say to game developers before is like, oh, if you're going to get into game development, you're not going to be playing any games, which I think is a terrible thing to say, because you need to be playing more games, especially if you're doing any kind of design aspect, but basically anything. Like, what you don't want to be doing is just playing World of Warcraft and nothing else, or just playing the latest AAA thing and nothing else. Like Assassin's Creed 100 or whatever, because play the first Assassin's Creed, that introduced some new ideas, but then you don't want to be playing things that aren't exposing you to new ideas. And but you definitely want to be playing lots of games. Like I play a lot of little indie games, like the Steam Fest's on at the moment, playing lots of little demos and stuff and trying stuff out. I think that's a really good source of inspiration, because yeah, you're just exposing yourself to lots of different ideas. Anyway, I've ranted on way too long for such a small topic. So I'll leave it there, but yeah, go get some inspiration.